Ring the bell again.
Welcome to the King Charles Radio Rotary Show. Let's start with a rousing performance by the Grand Funk Rotary Choir. Will everyone please stand? Today we are under the direction of Chip Miller.
Whoa!
Oh,
I'm doing it because Alan, if anybody has heard from, he's got COVID, so he's on.
Oh, wow.
Initial indications were from him were that he was fine, but I should probably call and check in on you.
Yeah, but he's 92, you know.
Oh, is he? Is that it?
Who are they talking about?
But anyway,
So this is
Creeping up on it.
Oh, they're talking about Alan?
new song, bro.
yeah.
Alan has COVID apparently.
No.
Oh,
Be
okay.
on the table.
Leave it here.
No, okay.
We're afraid people will be just as good with the songbooks as they are with their badges.
Jackie, you'll collect $5 fine for everybody that walks out. Right?
You got it.
There you go.
$10 fine for him, $5, they get priority over the dollar one, doesn't it?
If y'all turn to page 11, I was looking for something that had rain in the in somewhere in it. This is
Hoping
the first
for it.
one I came across, so I'm looking over a 4-leaf clover.
Okay. There we
What
go.
page?
Page 11.
I might know that.
I'm
looking
over
a 4-leaf clover that I overlooked before. One leaf is sunshine, the other is rain. Third is the roses that grow in the lane. No need explaining, the one remaining is somebody I adore. I'm looking over a 4-leaf clover that I overlooked before. All right, very good, ladies and gentlemen. And now, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And would you please either pray or meditate in as you prefer, as I say, bless this food to our use, us to thy service, and please watch over Alan as he recovers from COVID. Amen. And good. And now it's time to eat. Ladies and our guests, would you please come join? First, shortly about a new regional historical archive and presentation center that's up in the north. But for the moment, I would like to start with Happy Dollars.
Yes,
Yes.
I couldn't
Are you
wait.
happy?
Yes, and
Oh,
I
good.
have, I have 2 fibers. One because I'm happy to see Rick back. Rick hasn't been here so well. And Mark has returned to the fold.
Yes. Good. Anyone else? Joan.
I have $5 happy, hoping that I have a safe trip. I'm leaving tomorrow for Europe.
Oh, bravo. And you are heading?
Going to Italy and Greek islands.
Fabulous, fabulous. And you're yes, safe travel. And you're sitting right next to someone who has reason to be happy.
It's still there.
Europe is still there. Good. He was over there last week checking it out. So Randy Diamond just got back from
I
Switzerland.
have $5. I'm just happy to be back.
All right. Okay. Very good,
Took
very
you a while
good.
to pick up on that.
Anyone else? Any other
I
news?
was stalling.
I have $5 happy, one for Alan Burns and the other for Chip Miller for their successful completion of our songbook project. And no, you can't take them home, but
Is that
we-
$10 or you said one?
$10, yes, 5 and 5. Excuse me. And at any rate, they're gonna stay here. We have an extra supply. Hopefully we'll be well stocked with songbooks for a while to come. Now, I would like to turn over the floor to Chuck Huber and Stan Plowden, who are going to tell us, and I'm gonna ask that the
Cross
goose
your-
picture.
Cross your fingers.
Okay, very good, very good. And so they're going to be telling us about the Caboose project. You heard about it quite a bit last year and the year before, and they have made progress, and we're looking forward to making more progress. Oh, by the way, if you're in a table either on the sides, I suggest, like Mark, there's a picture you might want to see. There's several pictures actually, and start with the full picture of the caboose, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but you may want to stand and come over
No, I think
here,
I'd do it.
and yeah, just come around. Jim, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see.
All right, all right. I kind of-
I think you invited everybody to come around and look at it but me.
Oh, Jack.
All right,
Yeah.
while Bill's bringing that up, I
It
just
wasn't
wanted to
right.
give you a little bit of background on the history of this caboose. Real quick, I had 19 years of railroad service. I had 3 brothers that worked for the railroad. My grandfathers, my great-grandfather, so I had a long railroad history. Always been interested in railroad history, was part of several historical societies over the years. The way this happened here, and I did work over here in the 1970s, I took care of the radios on the Penn Central Railroad from Wilmington, Delaware, across the bay to Norfolk, Virginia, Little Creek, where the barge ran back and forth. Took care of the engine radios, as well as the base station radios, as well as the navigation systems on the tugboats. And I did that for 4 years before I actually went to work. I was a contractor then, went to work for the railroad. This caboose, there's a lot of questions about why is it nickel plate? When was the nickel plate over here? Well, it never really was. The Nickel Plate Railroad actually operated out of the Midwest in Chicago, but they were absorbed in 1964 with a merger with the Norfolk and Western Railroad. So as the Norfolk and Western merged them in, that rolling stock started appearing everywhere within the Norfolk and Western area, which included Norfolk, Virginia. The railroad over here was the New York, Philadelphia, and Norfolk Railroad.
I'm working
And they
on
were
it.
incorporated in 1884. In 1921, they were merged into the Pennsylvania Railroad, and they ran all this down here. Then in 1976, the Penn Central Railroad was incorporated in 1969. That was the merger of the New York Central, the New Haven, and the Pennsylvania Railroad. And that's who I was doing work for, the Penn Central Railroad. In 1976, that railroad, the Penn Central, and 6 other Northeast railroads all went bankrupt. And the federal government took them over, called them Consolidated Rail or Conrail. And they operated this over here. And they wanted to abandon the railroad over here, Conrail. And they actually ended up dumping from Pocomoke City south and the barge operation. They dumped that, and then the state of Virginia took over, and the Eastern Shore Railroad was born in 1981.
Chuck, we're gonna run a little bit short
Okay.
on time. Tell us about what you did, the good work that's been done on the roof.
All right, well, you wanted some history on how that nickel plate railroad caboose got here. Anyway, it made it over here because of the Norfolk and Western when they took over. The roof on the caboose currently is completed with the exception of the walkway. That's probably going to take about 4 to 6 hours of work, painting that graded walkway on top of the roof. Other than that, it's finished. So now we got the sides, 4 sides, the 2 long sides, the 2 short sides on the end to do. And then following that, the undercarriage, the wheels, the brakes, the air brakes and so forth underneath. So we're gonna do one side at a time. If you look at the sides, it's two colors. You got a white, off-white stripe on the top, and you got the red under that all the way down to the undercarriage. So a little bit of work has to be done there to just put a strip there, paint the top, and then once that dries, paint the bottom. We wanted to work from the top down because, as you know, paint will run. So if we do the bottom, if we do the top, I'm sorry, if we do the bottom, the undercarriage first, and then we do the side, the paint could run, and if we end up with red or white paint on the undercarriage, which needs to be black. So we had a process we were going to do, top down. Right now, working with Stan and with Jim, we're trying to get this back together again. And Ralph has stepped forward because one of the things we have to do, if you look at that caboose, it's nasty. It's got a lot of mold on the side. We need to power wash all that off. And Ralph has under his thumb power washing capability. So we just found that out, and we're gonna see if we can solicit some of his help to start working on the sides. We need to power wash within a couple of days after it dries. We need to start the painting. So we can't let any time lag between. We have to watch the weather. And of course, we need people. So please, if you have capability to give us a hand, please sign the sheet. If you have children or grandchildren you want to volunteer without their knowledge, we'll welcome that too. So we're looking for younger blood to help us here. The hard part, climbing up and down those end ladders, pretty much done. So the rest of it's going to be painting the sides and the undercarriage. Some of that is eye level, so it's not climbing ladders and so forth. So please sign up. You can give us a hand. We want to get started again, at least get another 6 to 8 weeks of work in before the winter sets in. Jim?
Great. So I've got the sign-up sheet here. I'm going to pass it around, and let me just emphasize: if you can paint a room, you can help with the painting on the and you're so inclined. You have the skills to help painting, because there's a lot of stuff that has to be done just from the ground. Also, yes, we're and some of it. So anyway, I'm just going to pass this around. There will be a meeting, and Chuck will let us know further. Thank you. And now it's time for our main speaker, Chris Pope, who just spent 15 years as an archivist at the Virginia Theological Seminary up in the DC area. Is here. He's going to tell you about really a new job, new project, and although this is the building itself is going to be up in Tasman. This is a project that could have very immediate impacts for us in our Invisible History project, and you know, it might even be a source of service if anyone's inclined. So, Chris.
Thank you very much. Where's the camera? There. Thank you, everybody, all Rotarians. Thank you, Mehdi, very much for the invitation. As was just alluded to, I'm going to talk about the new facility in Parksley, and then I'll talk about why I'm here, and in particular, how I can help the Invisible History Project. So the new facility, so I don't know for all of you that are aware, the Eastern Shore has a regional library. It's called the Eastern Shore Public Library and Heritage Center. Cape Charles has its own branch, and there's a branch in Nassauwadics and Accomack right now, as well as up in Chincoteague. And so the Accomack facility, which is the main branch, is going to be moving to Parksley, where we're building the public library and heritage center. I'm bringing this up. For those of you that are familiar with Parksley, there is a Dollar General that used to be next to the fresh produce grocery store. So this is the old fresh produce grocery store here. This is making up the main branch of the library. So here we have some staffing. This is the main entrance, and this is the entrance to the Heritage Center. So this is what you would consider your general public library facility, adult services, youth services, teen services, and stuff like that. On this side of here, this is what I've been hired to manage. So I am the Heritage Center manager. It's a new position. It's a new facility. It's a whole new project altogether.
I'm sorry, Chris.
You know, we're building the
Bill,
cultural.
can you
heritage
take
center
the
for
screen
Eastern
share
Shore,
down?
Virginia.
Thank you.
The only other real option or game in town is the Virginia Historical Society out of Onancock, and so I plan on partnering with them to be collaborators, cohorts, or whatever, even though we have two different missions. Within the Eastern Shore, within the Heritage Center, we have the Eastern Shore Room. So those of you familiar with doing genealogical research on the Eastern Shore, you may have already known the Eastern Shore Room in Accomack. It's the same thing. It's basically just a resource of all published material about local history. The archives, on the other hand, is going to be the unpublished material, the personal papers and stuff like that. So people, you may know the names of Francis Bibbins Latimer. We have her papers. Kirk Mariner, we have his papers and stuff like that. I'm in the process of negotiating with Curtis Badger for his papers. These are major historians on the Eastern Shore. And we want to make sure that we have all their research, all their gathered materials and stuff like that. So researchers going forward can find this material, but also we're providing a space. We're actually providing a physical location for these materials to be stored and preserved in perpetuity. Along with the Heritage Center facilities, the preservation facilities, we have an AV room in which we're going to have all sorts of obsolete AV equipment, so people can come in with their VHS tapes in theory and download, and transfer them either to CD, although that's obsolete as well, to thumb drive or some sort of digital media file, so that people can perpetuate their memories and stuff like that. Over here, we have a maker space, and that's going to be audio equipment and video recording equipment. So people could potentially go in and do an oral history interview and make sure they have state-of-the-art equipment to get it done. You should be able to do some video editing and stuff in there too, so you can build stuff for your organization. And then over here is the lecture hall. And this is for community programming and stuff. So people can come in, use the space, schedule a lecture, or we can schedule lectures and bring people in to come and see them. And then we have the library side of things, has all sorts of meeting rooms and everything like that. So we're really trying to be a center for the community, not just for their information needs or their historical needs, but as a gathering space and a community partner. We also have a new website. Probably should have told Bill before, although glad I didn't.
I couldn't handle it.
Our new website is esplheritage.org or esvaheritage.org. They both go to the same location. And that's where you can access our collections, our hours, and stuff like that. And this is where potentially we'll be able to partner with you a little bit. And I'll get into that, which is a good segue. So how can the Eastern Shore Virginia Heritage Center support the work of the Rotary Club, but in particular, the Invisible History of African Americans in Cape Charles project? And this is the real reason why I'm here, was to address this project in particular. There are three main ways in which we can support. We can support through research, through community outreach, and then of course through preservation. So I'll quickly run through these three different parameters. As far as research goes, this has been the most challenging part as far as partnerships. So Allison Stansel is her name, the researcher for the project. She has reached out to me and she's looking for access into some of our collections. Unfortunately, because the project is still new and this facility is not yet complete, we're not actually able to provide her the materials in which she's looking, in particular the Kirk Mariner papers. But we really fully intend to do that in the next couple of months as the facility gets open. I'm going to take a step back and just talk about the facility in general. For those of you who are not aware, this is a project that's been going on for about 15 years to get this facility built. Groundbreaking on this particular, I think, was 2017 or 2018, and then the pandemic happened. The contractor went under, they didn't meet this, we're working under bond companies, the roof keeps needing to be re-inspected, yada, yada, yada. Doing construction on the Eastern Shore has led this to be delayed. When I was hired, I was told an August 8th ribbon cutting date. I arrived in the Eastern Shore in May. I was told an August 8th ribbon cutting date, and as of this morning, we still have no actual certificate of occupancy date or anything like that. We're hoping by this fall we can actually start to move in. The Heritage Center is currently operating out of the old Crossroads coffee shop and only, which was the old Farmers and Merchants Bank in Main Street. So we are actually operating as a open facility. Sorry about that. Back to the research needs. We do have a lot of stuff digitized, including the Francis B. Latimer papers. And I know Allison's been accessing that. But really, once we get up and running and we're able to do this processing of collections and everything, we'll be able to get in and people will be able to do research, Medi and her colleagues, into the Invisible History of Dr. Eric Charles project. It's really just a matter of time and staffing, and we really hope to remedy that as soon as possible. Our support of the project in terms of historical data will hopefully grow over time, because as we hopefully are building our collections, building our papers, building our growth in general, we'll have more stories to tell. We'll be able to augment the project just as much as Medi's been trying to do as of today. So we really hope to be a research partner as much as possible. For not only the Invisible History Project, but for whatever history projects or research you may be doing on the Eastern Shore in general, whether it's genealogy, land research, and stuff like that. Another way the Heritage Center can support the Invisible History Project is through community outreach. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity for us to get the stories out there. We can help, various ways. The first way is through exhibits. We can, if Medi and her crew were to, or you all were to create an exhibit, we would easily or gladly house it at the library and Heritage Center. We can advertise it and we can have people come and, display it there. The Heritage Center does have dedicated exhibit space. The second would be through lectures or community programming. If you want to use our lecture hall, if Medi wanted to come and do a speech, or Allison or any of the others, or some of the speakers, I would love the fact that or the idea of having like a panel of 3 or 4 of the oral history subjects come and sit down and be able to talk about how the project has affected them, for better or worse. And then another way that we can support is through the conducting of oral histories. Whether I've conducted many oral histories in my lifetime, so whether it's actually conducting of interviews, providing the technology to do so, or the space to do so, we can continue to support the project that way as more subjects come to fruition. And then lastly, the way the Heritage Center can support the project, and this is the most important in my perspective, and the one I have starred, and I want to make sure I talked about, is for the preservation aspect. This project is so important that we need to preserve this material, not just for this generation, but for the generations to come. And what we can provide is very simply physical space. It's not easy to keep tapes and boxes of papers and oral histories and stuff like that. So the Heritage Center can offer actual shelf space in a climate controlled building that's going to be there for a very long time, and we can preserve that data. This, of course, brings me to the historical record, which is a conversation we'll need to have. What is the historical record from the oral history? Is it the audio file? Is it the video file? Or is it the actual physical transcript, the manuscript transcript? But either way, we can store all those on a shelf, not a problem. As far as digital storage goes, this is something that we'll be working on, and maybe you all would have some advice on how to help or some places to go. Digital storage takes money. That's really the only thing that digital storage takes. You have to buy some sort of software that you can manage the digital storage, then you have to pay for it itself. Amazon's really cheap, Google's really cheap, but over time it costs money. So depending on, let me take a step back. The Heritage Center right now is actively trying to figure out, I am actively trying to figure out what long-term digital preservation software we're going to go with and how we're going to use it. So once that is determined, we're going to need to do fundraising to make sure we can pay for it and stuff like that. And then we can advertise it. And then I can sell it to Maddie, not literally sell it, but I can make a pitch to Maddie and groups like yours. Hey, this is why this is going to be a really good spot to store this material. And these are the services we can provide. One good thing about collection management software, electronic collection management software, is if it has a web interface, you can do exhibits right there on the website and stuff like that. You can get everything accessible from your kitchen table, so to speak. But that's got to go through us, because we do the other thing, which is intellectual control. The intellectual control is the writing of the metadata, the who, what, when, where, and why the interview was taken. What are the subjects talked about? Who are the people talked about? Who was the interviewer? Who was the interviewee? Who was the date? If I'm a researcher and I'm looking for what was life like for Black people in Cape Charles, I'm going to search keywords, and we want to make sure that what we have is findable, right? It's all about discoverability. And we want to make sure that anything that we do online is as discoverable as possible. So that's really is one of the most important things about digital storage is it's no good if you can't find it, right? Same thing with on the shelf. It's no good if no one knows to come to your repository and look for the material. So we got to make sure that we do this as well as possible online. Excuse me, that's paper is easy to preserve. We know how to preserve it. It's just a matter of temperature and climate control and humidity control. Digital media is a whole different animal because what is the digital format going forward? So if you have everything on CD, well, it's probably obsolete. We already mentioned VHS is obsolete, cassette tapes and stuff like that. So this would be a conversation that I, as a professional and have experience in this, I can have with your group to say, these are the challenges you have with each possible mode in which you're saving it. So if you're going to take an audio file and save it to a CD, that's great, but a CD takes environmental controls you have to worry about. You also have to be able to read the CD going forward. So then you have a thumb drive. Well, a thumb drive's great, but at some point it's just going to stop working. So are you changing formats? Are you constantly migrating stuff like this? But this is the expertise that I can provide to you all and to Mehdi to say this is what you want to do, and this is how the best way to do it going forward for long-term preservation. There are obviously costs associated with that, so you got to balance the costs with the pros and cons and where the money's coming from. But we're currently looking at options, like I said, and because we're a public institution, we're going to try to do it as cheap and as reasonably as possible. Intellectual, and then accessibility. As I mentioned, the website, we have a new website. On that website, we have collection highlights and collection spotlights. So we can have right there on the collection page, boom, the invisible history of African Americans in Cape Charles. Nice big picture. You click on it, and then you get all the resources right then and there. So we can provide that. That gateway, that level of discoverability for anybody doing research in the web, which should be able to find us with just a quick search. We also on the website have highlights and spotlight pages, so we can do a small article about something in particular, or we can do a larger spotlight on the whole thing. And then the last thing about accessibility is the new facility here in Parksley. You're actually going to have a physical public repository with posted hours in which people know they can come and access the material. And they're going to have a professional there that's going to be able to talk them and walk them through it, access it. This way, you know, if there's concerns about copyright or citation and stuff like that, there'll be a barrier between the researcher and Mehdi, so I can provide that information, or I can also come back and be the go-between if need be. The Visible History Project is astoundingly important. It's important for prior underrepresented generations to be able to share their stories, tell and share their stories. It's important for current generations to know from whence they came. And it's important for future generations to not repeat the same mistakes we made. And I believe the Eastern Shore Virginia Heritage Center is poised in a really good position to provide the level of preservation and metadata and intellectual control that this project needs. And we would be honored to do so. Did I make it? 12:57. Thank you very much for your time. I do have a commercial. Yes, ask questions. In the back. Can you get the bag that's in the bag behind you, please?
The software you're talking about, are we talking hundreds or thousands of dollars?
It would be probably in the realm of a couple of thousand to get going, and then hundreds up to 1,000 annually to keep maintenance, depending on what we go. You can go open source, non-proprietary software, but then you need to have IT support to do it. We don't have an IT team. We deal with a contractor from the county. So it all depends on what the resources are on either end. If we go strictly proprietary, we'll be talking $10,000 annually. Yes, sir.
I've been a genealogist for 28 years. About 85,000 people in my family doing research. I have links to Tangier Island with Crockett family, Evans family, Stewart family. do you cover Tangier Island?
Absolutely.
All
Yeah, I mean, Tangier Island's, it's Accomack County. And so our charge is Northampton and Accomack
Okay.
County, but will cover Somerset County, Worcester and stuff like that as you get into Maryland and down. So absolutely.
Second question, have you entertained the idea of being a primary source for MyHeritage, Family Search, and Ancestry.com?
Yes.
There could be some income from them to you by making yourself and all your records available to them for them to earn income to,
Right.
to sell it.
Yeah, so we're not in an official partnership with them yet because we're not poised to be there. That is one thing I would consider going forward. But if you were to click on the Heritage Center website or the library website, you're going to see Ancestry.com. You're going to see Family Search and stuff like that. You're also going to see the Miles Files. I'm sure you're aware of the Miles Files, but the Miles Files is a vitally important genealogical research from the Eastern Shore by Moody K. Miles and his brother. And so we link to that too. And our website will parallel with them going
Can
forward.
I talk to you for a few minutes?
Absolutely, I'll be around afterward. There was a question over.
I do have a question. I didn't have my hand up before. What type of an organization are you? Are you part of the Eastern Shore Public Library System? Are you a 501c3? Are you both?
I don't know what our tax designation is. I'm coming from the 501c3 world, so I do think I would know. We're a joint partnership between the two counties. So essentially the two counties have said, we need a library, and they've given the foundation or the board of trustees to say, here's some money, now raise the rest and get it going. So we are a regional library that handles the two. We are a public entity. I don't believe we're a nonprofit. Does that make sense?
I just wondered if so the Heritage Center organizationally reports to the librarian?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. The first step, yes. My boss is Kara Burton, the library director. She answers to the president of the board of trustees. And so that is the hierarchy there.
But you are affiliated because they are affiliated with the foundation.
100%.
And that is a 501c3.
The foundation is the money raising
Right.
arm of the library project.
Do they intend to continue going forward?
100%. I was brought here on certain promises of continued fundraising, endowments, and stuff like that. I don't, someone of my qualifications doesn't come necessarily cheaply, although I'm nowhere near as expensive as a lawyer or a doctor or something, but you need to be able to pay, the master's degree staff to get here. So they are trying to endow my position in particular and other things going forward, but the foundation will always be there raising.
Is that the Eastern Shore Foundation?
It's Eastern Shore Public Library Foundation, Eastern Shore Virginia Public Library Foundation. That being said, we do have a brick buying program where you can buy a brick and dedicate it to anyone, yourself, or a program. And it will go in the front here. Disregard all the landscaping. It's not going to look anything like that. Basically, all got cut from the budget. But the building's more or less the same, although my office is right here. It's not shown there either. But if you wanted to buy a brick and support the program, you could do so. And I'll leave these out. And then here is the brochure in which we described, this was our fundraising arm several years ago. And if you look in the back, here are our fundraising goals. Now these are 4 or 5 years out of date at this point, but this will give you a sense of what we're trying to raise money for.
Is your website address in that pamphlet?
The library website is.
Okay, good.
But the ESVAheritage.org. So Eastern Shore Virginia.
Chris
But
has,
anyway, I do have those brochures. Any other questions while I'm?
yes, can you hear me, Chris?
We don't have a formal relationship other than the
Bill,
fact that
can you hear us?
I've been told I need to
Yes.
get up there and meet the people.
Bill,
and
can you hear us?
Yes.
form that relationship.
Reggie has
That's
a
my understanding.
question.
That we have worked with them in the past and they've been really supportive of this. And I know reading through Medi's literature that they've
Hold
been
on.
very supportive of your project.
All right.
Which is great. So
Chris, we have a Zoom question.
great.
Never had a Zoom
Yes.
question before.
Look at
So
that.
you have to come over here.
He's passing
Uh,
those around.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but to
Chris?
hear him Reggie, wait
Yes,
till he
can you
comes
hear
over,
me?
you get and what's your question?
Yeah, you repeat it.
Yes.
I'll repeat
I
it.
want to know if he has any information in the archives currently for the Cape Charles Rosenwald School project that was done.
Do you have any information regarding the Rosenwall initiative?
It is my
Okay,
understanding, yes. So there was a fundraiser, there was something a couple of weeks ago. We provided some images for that. Like we talking about the camera, we have provided images for the Rosenwald School. As far as what we have as paper or evidentiary material, I don't know just yet. That's something I have to look into, although it is part of my field trip today to drive by the Rosenwald School to make sure I know where it is and to be a part of it. So I think my answer to that question is to be determined, because I'm still so green that I don't know, but it's absolutely on my list of one of the projects that we don't want to support, we need to support. And so, yes, absolutely we will. And I'll be, whatever we find, we'll share with everybody.
Thank you.
He said, thank you.
I heard that. And we have little book bags for everybody. I don't know if everybody can take one, but there are some here. Basically, the Eastern Shore of Virginia Library is here to support the community. The Heritage Center is here to support the community as well, as far as the historical side of things. But in particular, I think we could partner with the Invisible History Project as much as you need. Yes, sir.
I was just over a neighbor's house. He's moving to a smaller place. He's got a whole wall full of books.
Yeah.
Many of them look to be older, but in very good condition.
Yeah.
Is there any interest in that? I mean,
That's a library. So
I mean, is that a
this happens all the time, as you can imagine. We can handle that several ways. If it's a significant collection like the size of this room, we would come in and we would assess it ourselves, and we would do a survey. Otherwise, if it were small, like a bookshelf, we would ask for an inventory of what's there so that we could go through it. We're constantly growing and trying to augment our local history collection, absolutely. So if there are rare books about the history of the Eastern Shore, we would be interested in stuff like that. And then if there's any ephemera or documentary evidence, photographs, bulletins, flyers, stuff like that, then the archives, the Heritage Center would absolutely be interested in stuff like that.
If he's interested in doing that.
Absolutely. But what I do is I answer these questions 100 times, and I'm glad to field phone calls and stuff like that, because you never know who's got what. So that's my pitch.
Yeah.
Go into your attics, go into your neighbor's attics, whatever you know, who you know. If they got material that might be of interest.
We've been here for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Godwin, one of the residents full time in Cape Charles, has a business that goes all the way to 1896. And he has a lot of records in his house.
Yeah, so we would be very interested in preserving those records.
All right.
Yeah. So I forgot to actually define what an archivist is. I said I was going to do that. Does everyone know what I do? Good.
We do now.
Yeah. Hopefully I got that across.
Any other questions?
Are you building a relationship with the Cape Charles Historic Society?
I haven't started to yet, but absolutely. Through the museum network, there are people involved. What I'm learning is, which I'm sure each one of you is guilty of, you do more than one thing when you volunteer around here. You're constantly involved. So I'm sure I've met people that are more involved, but the museum network has been great through that. And I'll be, upon Kara's retirement, I will be running the museum network. But yes, I plan on going to as many Rotary clubs, historical societies, small museums, as much as I can, as often as I can. Yes, sir.
Same question basically with the Barrier Island Center.
We are in partnership with them. They actually are doing a really good job with what they have. They've got some maps that they're not sure what to do with, so we might take them and everything. But we've gone through their programming and supported them, and they're going to do the same for us and everything. So they're very well funded and very, I don't want to say strict as opposed to like you can't come in here, but they're very strict as to how their money gets used and everything like that. So they're in really good shape. We will absolutely be partnering with them or supporting them however we can. Yes, ma'am.
May I have your last name, please?
Pote, P-O-T-E.
Thank you.
And what's your title?
I am the Heritage Center Manager.
Okay.
Nice and sweet.
Chris, your name and will appear in a little plaque that the Literacy Council is putting in copies of Made to Great. This is a graduation book for children up to the age of 5 who have been participating in their Dolly Parton books giveaway. And when they leave, they get a copy of this and one of them is going to have the program and your name.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you very
I
much.
really appreciate your time. Thank you.
The history projects are in the hands of energetic and well-trained people like Chris.
And I'll stick around for whoever has any questions, and please take stuff, so I don't have to take it home.
All right, would everyone please stand for the Rotary pledge? Is it the truth?
Is it
fair to all concerned?
Will it
Will
build
goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Oh, and Stan?
Will we have fun?
Yes. Going service, service above self, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey,
All right, Reggie, I'll see you later.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
See, Mark.